Thank you so much. Thank you for singing. I have a little inflammation, so I wanted singing, but I appreciate your singing. Thank you. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavad Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Could I have the Srimad Bhagavatam second canto? appreciate it. So, Shruti Sagar Prabhu told me that the verses that are being discussed are second canto, chapter 7, 26 to 29. And so, I think like the last time, devotees would read the translation of 26, 27, 28, 29, and then our focus verse would be 27. Okay. With that in mind, would someone like to read the translation of verse 26?
Sure. When the world is overburdened by the fighting strength of kings who have no faith in God, the Lord, just to diminish the distress of the world, descends with his plenary portion. The Lord comes in his original form with beautiful black hair, and just to expand his transcendental glories, he acts extraordinarily. No one can properly estimate how great he is.
There is no doubt about Lord Krishna being the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, how was it possible for him to kill a giant demon like Putana when he was just on the lap of his mother, to overturn a cart with his leg when he was only 3 months old, or to uproot a pair of Arjuna trees so high that they touched the sky when he was only crawling? All these activities are impossible for anyone other than the Lord himself.
Then also when the cowherd boys and their animals drank the poison water of the river Yamuna, and after the Lord, in his childhood, revived them by his merciful glance, just to purify the water of the river Yamuna, he jumped into it as if playing and chastised the venomous Kalya snake, which was lurking there, its tongue emitting waves of poison. Who can perform such Herculean tasks but the Supreme Lord?
Night of the day of the chastisement of the Kalya snake, when the inhabitants of Rajbhumi were sleeping carefreely, there was a forest fire ablaze due to dry leaves, and it appeared that all the inhabitants were sure to meet their death. But the Lord, along with Balaram, saved them simply by closing his eyes. Such are the superhuman activities of the Lord.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll read the verse 27. You can recite after me. Tokena jiva haranam yaduluki kayayas.
Tokena jiva haranam yaduluki kayayas.
Traimasikasya cha padashakatopavritta.
Traimasikasya cha padashakatopavritta.
Yad ringatantara gatena divi sprashorva.
Yad ringatantara gatena divi sprashorva.
Unmulanam tva itarat arjunayor na bhavyam. Tokena jiva haranam yaduluki kaya. Traimasikasya cha padashakato apavrittaha. Yadringatantara gatena divi sprashorva. Unmulanam tva itarat arjunoyor bhavyam. It's a mouthful, isn't it? Okay, last time. Tokena jiva haranam yaduluki kaya. Traimasikasya cha padashakatopavrittaha. Yadringatantara gatena divi sprashorva. Unmulanam tva itarat arjunayor na bhavyam. Would anyone else like Yeah, go ahead. Tokena jiva haranam yadulukikayas. Traimasikasya chapado shakato pravritta. Yadringatantarakatena divispashorva. Unmulanam tva itarat arjuno yorna bhavyam. Tokena jiva haranam yadulukikaya. Traimasikasya chapada shakato pavrittaha. Yadringatantaragateena divispashorvam. Unmulanam tva itarat aljunayorna bhavyam. Very good. Well done, presents. Thank you. Tokena, by a child. How do you do it? Together, okay. Jiva haranam, killing a living being. Yat, one which. Ulukikayaham, assume the giant body of a demon. Traimasikasya, of one who is only 3 months old. Cha, also. Pada, by the leg. Shakata apavrittaha, turned over the cart. Yat, one who. Ringata, while crawling. Antaragatena, being overtaken. Divi, high in the sky. Sprishoho, touching. Va, either. Mulanam, uprooting. Tu, but. Itaratha, anyone else than. Arjunayo, of the 2 Arjuna trees. Na bhavyam, was not possible. And translation? Do I read? Does someone else read? All right, let's do it. There's no doubt about Lord Krishna being the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, how was it possible for him to kill a giant demon like Putana when he was just on the lap of his mother, to overturn a cart with his leg when he was only 3 months old, to uproot a pair of Arjuna trees so high that they touched the sky when he was only crawling? All these activities are impossible for anyone other than the Lord himself. Did anyone read the purport? Yes.
One cannot manufacture a god by one's mental speculation or by numerical votes, as has become a practice for the less intelligent class of men. God is God eternally, and an ordinarily living entity is eternally a part and parcel of God. God is one without a second, and the ordinary living entities are many without number. As such, living entities are maintained by God Himself, and that is the verdict of the Vedic literatures. When Krishna was on the lap of his mother, the demon Putna appeared before his mother and prayed to nurture the child in her lap. Mother Yashoda agreed, and the child was transferred onto the lap of Putna, who was in the garb of a respectful lady. Putna wanted to kill the child by smearing poison on the nipple of her breast. But when everything was complete, the Lord sucked her breast along with her very air of life, and the demon's gigantic body, said to be as long as 6 miles, fell down. But Lord Krishna did not need to expand himself to the length of the she demon Putna, although he was quite competent to extend himself more than 6 miles long. In his Vamana incarnation, he posed himself as a dwarf Brahmana, but when he took possession of his land, promised by Bali Maharaj, he expanded his footsteps to the top of the universe, extending over 1,000 and millions of miles. So it was not very difficult for Krishna to perform a miracle by extending his body features, but he had no desire to do so because of his deep filial love for his mother, Yashoda. If Yashoda had seen Krishna in her lap extended 6 miles to cope with the she-demon Putna, then the natural filial love for Yashoda would have been hurt because in that way Yashoda would have come to know that her so-called son, Krishna, was God himself. And with the knowledge of the Godhead of Krishna, Yashoda Mai would have lost the temper of her love for Krishna as a natural mother. But as far as Lord Krishna is concerned, he is God always, either as a child on the lap of his mother or as covered of the universe, Vamana Dev. He does not require to become God by undergoing several penances, although some might think of becoming God in that way. By undergoing several austerities and penances, one cannot become one or equal with God, but one can obtain most of the godly qualities. A living being can attain godly qualities to a large extent, but he cannot become God. Whereas Krishna, without undergoing any types of penance, is God always, either in the lap of his mother or growing up at any stage of growth. So at the age of only 3 months, he killed Saktashura, who had remained hidden behind a cart in the house of Yashodamai. And when he was crawling and was disturbing his mother from doing household affairs, the mother tied him with a grinding pestle. But the naughty child dragged the pestle up to a pair of very hard juna trees in the yard of Yashodamai. And when the pestle was stuck between the pair of trees, they fell down with a horrible sound. When Yashodamai came to see the happening, she thought that her child had been saved from the falling trees by the mercy of the Lord, without knowing that the Lord himself, crawling in her yard, had wreaked the havoc. So that is the way of reciprocation of the love affairs between the Lord and his devotees. Yashodamai wanted to have the Lord as her child, and the Lord played exactly like a child in her lap, but at the same time played the part of the Almighty Lord whenever it was so required. The beauty of such pastimes was that the Lord fulfilled everyone's desires. In the case of felling the gigantic Arjuna trees, the Lord's mission was to deliver the two sons of Kuvera, who were condemned to become as trees by the curse of Narda, as well as to play like a crawling child in the yard of Yashoda, who took transcendental pleasure in seeing such activities of the Lord in the very yard of her home. The Lord, in any condition, is the Lord of the universe, and he can act as such in any form, gigantic or small, as he likes. Shil Prabhupada ki.
Jai Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much. Okay, there was a lot of information in that purport. It's almost like a mini 10th canto in one sense. There's a lot of pastimes, right? Yeah, so I want to start with first recognizing that today is a very special day. Can anyone tell me why is today special? Yes, what is Guru Purnima? Thank you. Someone share what is Guru Purnima? The Guru, the one of the original gurus, not the original guru, but one of the original gurus is Vyasadeva, someone who wrote the Srimad Bhagavatam. He's also an acharya in our sampradaya, and so today is his appearance day. And because he represents the Guru Tattva in terms of in this Kali Yuga specifically, his appearance day is celebrated as Guru Purnima. Purnima means full moon night. And Vyasdev appeared today, so it's celebrated as a worship of our gurus. So what we do is we pay obeisances, we remember our gurus, and we show respect to our gurus. And it doesn't have to be our initiating or instructing spiritual masters, but anywhere we take learnings and lessons from. I think the idea is that we give obeisances and respect to the Guru Tattva where we are getting lessons from. So that's an important day. What else is today? Today is someone's disappearance day. That's right. That's right. Sanatana Goswami. Can anyone tell me who is Sanatana Goswami? One of the 6 Goswamis. Okay. Okay. Can we get a little more detail about his life? Okay. Rupa Goswami's brother, younger or elder? Elder brother. Okay. What famous temple did Sanatana Goswami build in Vrindavan? That's right, the Madan Mohan temple. And what's special about the Madan Mohan temple? It's the oldest temple in Vrindavan. The oldest temple. It's one of the first big temples after Mahaprabhu instructed the Goswamis to excavate the basis of Lord Krishna's pastimes. So Sanatan Goswami was also known as Pade Baba in Vrindavan. If you go to local Brajvasha, they talk about Sanatan Goswami as the eldest saint there. And him, along with his younger brother Rupa Goswami, have written books, have written sandarbhas, have excavated places, and then have advanced the movement of Lord Chaitanya forward. So there's a lot to say about Sanatan Goswami. So today is his disappearance day. There's another thing that happens today. What's the third thing? That's right. For what reason? Well, nice shot. Yes.
No leaving.
That's right. Why is no? What do we start fasting for? What is this? That's right. So today is also the beginning of Chaturmasya. That means Chatur means 4, Masya means month. So these 4 months of fasting, it starts with essentially when Shayan Ekadashi, which was the last Ekadashi that passed, which is essentially the idea that Lord Vishnu goes to sleep. And in Devutni Ekadashi, which comes in November, Lord Vishnu wakes up. So when the Lord is sleeping, in that sense, the 4 months are used where saints and monks, they don't travel as much. They stay put in one place, they start fasting, and they increase their spiritual practices and vows. So this is the start of a very special month. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about Chaturmasya. Yep, there it is. Yeah, and then today actually is also the tithi of the disappearance of Bhakti Charu Maharaj. The actual date was a few days earlier, but Bhakti Charu Maharaj was a pioneer in the Hare Krishna movement and a very revered saint. So he also passed away, I think, 5 years ago. Okay, so now going back to our verses and going back to the understanding, can anyone tell me who is speaking these verses? The 4 verses that we read. Lord Brahma is speaking. Very good. Who is he speaking to? Narada Muni. Okay, and what question is Lord Brahma speaking these verses about? Thank you. Exactly. And last time I came here, we discussed the last chapter. Can anyone tell me what was the name of the last chapter? What's the name of the last chapter? Purusha Sutta? Confirmed, right? And why did I tell you? Why did Prabhupada, or why did this chapter called Purusha Sutta confirm? What is Purusha Sutta? That's right. The prayers to the supreme form of the Lord, which is the universal form of the Lord, right? Purusha Sutta. And we discussed that these prayers come in the Vedas, the Vedic texts that we have available. And the Puranas exist to confirm whatever is written in the Vedas, right? So Vyasadeva, whose appearance is today, he titled the chapter as Purusha Sutta Confirmed. That means that the prayers of the Vedas are meant to be confirmed in the Puranas. Now this chapter, what is the title of this chapter then? Yes, with specific functions. So at the end of the last chapter, so this is a conversation between Narad Muni and Brahma, and Narad Muni is the disciple of Brahma, and he's asking all kinds of questions. Can you describe the creation to me? Can you describe this? Can you describe that? And so Lord Brahma is going through this whole process of explaining what is the cosmos, what are the principles, what are the elements, etc. And towards the end, Narada Muni asks that, okay, enough about the creation. Can you tell me about the creator, essentially? Because what's the point of understanding a creation when we don't know who the creator is, when we don't know about that? It's almost like if somebody gives you the best quality of computer, but they don't give you a login access. it's just a weighing, a paperweight, some kind of a thing that you use. So Narad Muni has asked all these questions about the cosmic creation. Now he wants to know the details behind who the creator is. And so Brahma, in response to that question, starts giving these answers that, okay, let me tell you about this person. Let me tell you their activities. And so when we come to these verses, these 4 verses, he's describing the idea of divinity as being superhuman. That's the idea. That's the concept here that we are looking through these 4 verses. And specifically, if we see Krishna Lila in whole, the whole point of Krishna Lila, not the whole point, but one of the points of Krishna Lila is to showcase that God is superhuman, prove that perspective, that God is not ordinary, he's superhuman. So, and we live in the age of pushing limits. We understand a lot of people are obsessed with the idea of this being superhuman. Can anyone tell me who Felix Baumgartner is? It's a random question. Anyone heard that name? He, in 2012, he is part of the Red Bull, the adventure club that Red Bull has, and they push human limits forward. He was the first one to break the barrier of sound. He jumped almost from the height of the International Space Station down, and he broke the barrier of sound, first human to do so. And people were, wow, this is an incredible person. What just happened? And we look for these superhuman activities and abilities, and when we see it, we get wowed by it. Does anyone know Alex Honnold? Has anyone heard of him? In relation to Yosemite and El Capitan. Who is he? That's right. Yeah, so El Capitan is this famous granite wall in Yosemite National Park. And it's massive, it's incredible. Those who have been there can attest to how amazing it looks. So people climb that El Capitan. It's been a thing of conquest that I want to climb this. Mountain climbers prepare for years, and there are multiple hundreds of paths that they follow to climb up. But everyone does it with a harness and with securities in place, and they do it over a period of a week or so because it's massive. There's this one guy called Alex Honnold. He did it without any harness. He did it without any support system, and he did it in a span of a few hours. One morning he goes up and just starts climbing the whole thing and climbed up. There's a famous documentary about him called Free Solo. Exactly. So you have seen that documentary, right? That how when we see superhuman feats like that, we go, wow, what is happening? Because it is something that we don't see ordinarily in life. And so we have a tendency to get wowed by these things. But when Krishna does these things, and when we hear about, oh yeah, Krishna lifted the Govardhan, so what? Oh, I've seen the Govardhan, so what? Oh, Krishna as a baby is kicking this cart, this tiny baby kicking this massive cart. Imagine the cart almost the size of Krishna house trailers, and he kicks it, and a little baby comes and kicks those. Like, yeah, Krishna, we've seen it. We barely react, actually. And so I was thinking of this, that the whole point that these verses are talking about is that look at this impossibility that God is demonstrating. And I'm going to talk about how Brahma gives a logical argument of understanding God through logic. But when we see it in the world, we get blown away. And I was thinking that how, because of CGI, because of all these things that we see today, Marvel movies and these crazy things happening, we get desensitized to the idea of divinity or this idea of impossibility. But so here's my question, and here's my main premise, that today's verse actually proved that the impossibility is not just about pushing human limits, but to an impossibility as a way of divinity that comes to us. Okay, so yeah, I gave the background why Narada Muni is asking these questions. He says that, yeah, after 6 chapters of almost cosmic creation, universal elements, time, space, dimensions, whatnot, tell me about the creator itself. And then Brahma, in actually his response, he says that he is kind of giving a theoretical basis of God up until this point, but at this point he gets a little personal. And he says that, okay, I've told you about God in all these different universal time and all these concepts, but now let's see in action what happens. So this is God in action, and that's what we're talking about. in the Sat Sandarbha by Jiva Goswami, he mentions that Achintya Shaktir Bhagavan iti Sri Bhagavate Smritam. That means that unless we accept the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Lord, it is not possible for us to understand Him at all. Which is kind of a wild statement, because he's saying that unless we understand the inconceivable, we won't be able to understand it. So unless we understand that God is beyond our understanding, we won't be able to understand God. That's essentially what Jiva Goswami is saying. So the point is that these examples are given to us to grapple with this idea of impossibility. The reason we struggle with impossibility is because we try to understand it through our senses, which are limited in nature. Last time I briefly shared about that, how our eyes can only see from 420 nanometers to 720 nanometers, how our ears can only hear up until 16,000 hertz or so. Animals can see and hear more than us. So we also conceive in terms of the three-dimensional world that we see and then we inhabit. We are also bound by time. So somehow these impossible. So within the bounds of this, when we see impossibility, we get blown away. And that's what Krishna comes and shows us. That okay, within the bounds of this material world, let me show you how impossibility looks like. Okay, so in the verse number 26, he's talking about that when the world is overburdened by the fighting strength of kings. He's not talking about, Brahma is not talking about just the earth. He's talking about the whole planetary systems, because we see examples of Krishna coming and killing Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, and some pastimes happen here, some happen on upper planetary systems, some lower planetary systems. So when these things happen, when the cosmic order is disrupted by these asuric forces, then the Lord calculates a tipping point. He decides one point that, okay, that was too much. Now I'm gonna come. Like a parent, telling the kids to play. That okay, play. The kids are making noise. The parent is working, and there's a tipping point when it happens. That all right, this is it. You're grounded. So that's what happens. That these people, the jivas have free will. They're doing their own thing. Then they want to lord over something. They say that okay, let me show you, I'm better than you. When it gets to a certain point, Krishna descends and he comes, or he sends his representatives. And the verse also says that he doesn't come by himself, he comes with someone, right? So he never comes alone. He has his expansions, his representatives, all of it. And he also has physical markers, right? There's a specific thing that says that he comes with beautiful black hair. It's a specific marker to understand how we understand a particular form of the Lord. And his ways transcend the cause-effect analysis, because we can never understand, his transcendental glories. In the next verse, the verse number 27, which is our main verse of this. Now here Brahma is talking about that there's no doubt that Krishna is Supreme Lord, and he gives a logical argument, right? So first argument that he gives is that he gives the example of killing of Putana, the overturning of Shakatasur, and the uprooting of the Arjuna trees. And he said that all these activities are impossible for anyone other than the Lord himself. So what premise is he establishing? He's establishing a historical testimony that these things happened, that these events did take place. Then what else is he saying? He's saying that these acts are materially impossible, that these things are not ordinary. An ordinary baby cannot uproot these things. What's the third thing he's saying? He's saying that if these materially impossible things happen, then the actor who performed transcends matter. There's no way that this actor can do it. Therefore, the actor who's performing is God. So that's the kind of chain of argument that Brahma is making here. And it's, if you see, he's kind of jumping from this idea of the concepts to a personal aspect of God, that okay, what does God do? And it's kind of a chain linked to this point in time. So I want to briefly talk about these people, these personalities that are mentioned here. So let's start with Putana, and then we'll see how it relates to our life and what we can learn from these. So Putana, who was Putana? That's right, Putana came from a cave. That's right. So Kamsa was known for having great friends. Kamsa was a mafia, a mob boss, and Kamsa would recruit these incredible yogis who were a little twisted in their heads. They were not straightforward. They didn't want to uplift the world. They didn't want to uplift the world. They wanted to make sure that I want to show who I am. I'm going to show them what I can do. This kind of mentality. So he enlists Putana. In the past, and Prabhupada actually mentions, he talks about in the purport the Putana's pastime, and he gives Bali Maharaja's pastimes. In the past, actually, Putna was Princess Ratnamala, and she was the daughter of Bali Maharaj. And when Bali Maharaj was doing his sacrifices, and when Lord Vamanadev appeared, and Vamanadev was so short and sweet and beautiful looking. Then Putna, back in that time, Ratnamala had a desire that, oh, I wish I could have a son like him. I wish I could nurse and I could be mother to this Brahmin boy. So she had that desire. But when Vamandev really showed his colors in the sense that when he showed why he was really there for, to show Bali Maharaj that, okay, you think you're supreme? Okay, how about you give me some charity? How about you give me this? And then, of course, the whole story. So when Putna saw that his father was kind of humiliated in one sense when Ratnamala, she immediately cursed at that point that, okay, if I were to get him as a baby, I'd feed him the deadliest poison. So that was the mindset. So then, of course, later, this Ratnamala is born as Putna in her next life, and so that she could specifically train by Kamsa, and she could kind of fulfill that desire. Right? Putna was huge. 6 krochas is the description of her, which is 12 miles, which is inconceivable. Again, to understand God's impossibility, we have to get into that realm that, okay, this is not an ordinary person. If you think of ordinary sense, how could it be 6 miles long and how could that happen? But when we get into the realm of divinity, that, okay, Krishna is known for doing impossible things and that's what makes him God. Well, not that that's what makes him God, but that's one of the reasons why he's God. Then we can truly start to understand. And can anyone tell me what poison did Putna bring? There's a specific name of that poison. It's black. Okay. Yeah. If you can pull up 3:2:23, then it gives the name of that specific poison. One of the most famous verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. Aho bakiyam stana kalakutam जिघांसयाय पपयाद अपि असाध्वी लेभे गतिम धात्री उचितम ततोन्यम कम्वा दयालुम शरणम प्रजेमा. So Kalakutam, Aho Bakiyam Sthana Kalakutam. That Putana applied a poison called Kalakutam. And she comes with this poison. And this is one of the most famous verses. This verse made a lot of it in Gaur Lila. Devotees start crying listening to this verse, hearing this verse, that how glorious is Krishna, that somebody who has come to kill him, and he gives her the position of a mother, because he only sees the good desire that Putna had actually. So anyway, so Putna comes with this identity, right? She chooses Nandotsav as the day when Krishna his birth is being celebrated. And back in the day, sometimes you'd understand that how come this random lady just walks in and the parents agree that, okay, feed my child. Back in the day, there were occurrences that heavenly beings would come, and when they would see a birth taking place, they would bring gifts and nourishment and all kinds of things. Gandharvas would come and bestow the child with celestial singing. So all of these heavenly beings would come. So Putna came dressed like this heavenly being, and they saw that, oh, some apsara from heavenly planets has come to nourish your child, because when the child gets the milk of the heavenly milk from the child would be strong and would be a child with divine qualities. So she entered almost like a mystic, and she said, let me nurse this beautiful child. But Krishna knew what was happening. So when Krishna started sucking, he actually sucked her whole life out. The whole life air was sucked out of it. Now, her gigantic body fell across Vrindavan, created an earthquake for 12 miles. So what does Putana represent in our life? What does Putana represent in our life? How can we take this lesson? We understand the story, we get the idea of impossibility, but we have to make it personal, because Krishna never does anything just for the heck of it. It is a personal piece.
What I get out of it is that somebody that's coming with gifts and seems to be your friend may have ulterior motives, and you can't always trust a giving hand because they could have a knife in the other one.
Absolutely. Thank you. Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Krishna Samhita describes Putana represents the pseudo gurus. So Putana represents these people who would come, perfectly aesthetic. I have 10,000 followers. I'm going to set an enlightenment course for $19.99. I'm a wellness influencer, so I'm going to put this great product, I'm going to provide the chat GPT wisdom to you. going to provide poisonous misinformation as the truth. That's what Putana represents. Deceptive association, poison knowledge. Yeah, thank you. Corrupt practices and false philosophy. So Prabhupada says in actually Krishna book chapter 6 that these religious systems may appear as nourishing to us, but they are actually killing our spiritual life. So that's what Putana represents. So when what Krishna does is he kills that, sucks the entire life out of it. So we understand that in our life, how can we do a Putana detox essentially in our life? How can we understand that what are these false gurus and false systems in our life that we are adhering to? And can we identify and can we kill it with the authorized sources of Srimad Bhagavatam and Krishna? That okay, let's kick this out of our life. So that's the impossibility of Krishna, and that's also the possibility in our life, how we can make it. Okay, we're going to quickly move to the next demon. What was the next demon that is mentioned here in this verse? Shakatasur. Okay, so Shakatasur. So he was the card demon. And you'll be like, what is a card demon? It doesn't make sense. It's not even so scary. Putana is definitely when she becomes 12 miles long and whatnot. Like, whoa. But this is a demon in a card. So what does that mean? So in his last life, his name was Utkacha. He was the son of Hiranyaksha. And he inherited the demonic strength and rage from his father. So Hiranyaksha, who was Hiranyaksha? Yeah, the brother of Hiranyakashipu. And what did Hiranyaksha do that made him infamous? Exactly. He was such a rascal that he took the earth, the planet down into the lower planetary systems and he hid it. And he wanted to fight with Krishna. So his son, so think of it, that was him. Now his son is Utkacha. He's proud of his physical power. He's challenging sages. He said, do you know who my father is? No, that's who I am. So what he did was, there was a sage named Lomas who was doing 100-year meditation. And he, out of those 100 years, he did 99 years and 11 months of meditation. In his last month, this is the last month, he's waiting, okay, 100-year meditation, about to close. I got this, this was great. And Utkacha appears and he destroys the meditation practice. He destroys the yajna, destroys the whole thing. He said, ah ha ha, 100 years, 99 years, 11 months, I got you. So Lomasa curses this boy Utkacha and says that, you fool, you have no understanding. You're uprooting trees here. You're killing peaceful animals here in the hermitage. You're contaminating sacred sources. You're scattering my sacrificial ingredients. You act without a body consciousness. So I curse you that you lose your body and you become a ghost. And you come in a ghostly body. So he started to get really shivered and afraid, and he asked for a blessing. Please save me. Please protect me. So then Lomas Rishi, because these sages they curse you, but they're also such compassionate hearted people that he blesses them that, okay, fine. If Krishna touches if Krishna's feet touches you, you'll be liberated. So this same guy who's wandering as an invisible spirit and haunting places, he decides to enter into the card that is placed in Krishna's home. And again, it's a huge festival day because Nandotsav Krishna's birth was not celebrated for just one evening. Oh, happy birthday, Krishna, you're born. It was a months-long celebration. That same time Putana came, that same time they were arranging all these beautiful cards. And so this was this massive loaded wooden card, at least 1,000 pounds, if we were to start to understand. And how much is the kicking force of a baby? 1 pound, Think of a 1 pound baby who's kicking force of 1 pound, kicks this little card, this thousands of pounds card, the required force to overturn a card. I was just applying a little math here. It doesn't make sense because Krishna transcends physics entirely. It doesn't make sense that how these things would work. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that this Shakatasur, what does he represent? He represents a list of our anarthas or our bad habits in this form of card. This card was stacked with all kinds of things. And so all our anarthas. So anarthas could be any bad habits. It doesn't have to be specific things from Shastras. They could be, but it could be really bad habits that come in our process of Krishna consciousness, in our process of becoming better self-realized persons. So just as Krishna kicks this card and destroys these things, we take Krishna in our life and we destroy these things. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati actually says in Anubhashya that the card represents the karma that seems like impossible to overcome. That We feel sometimes that we have these traumas in life, or I have these bad habits, or I've done these things that I don't know how I will get out of it. We all go through this process in our lives when we think deep down in our hearts that I have all these guns and I feel ashamed of it. And I don't know how I will overcome these things. I practice Krishna consciousness, I do these things. How will it work? That's why Krishna performs his pastime. He comes as a baby to show that for Krishna, this is just a child's play. We say that, oh, it's a child's play. It is a child's play for Krishna. The thing that seems impossible to us, Krishna makes it possible in short. And that gives us hope and blessings and lessons that, yeah, maybe I can trust you, Krishna. That Krishna, I don't have the capacity to deal with this card demon and all my anarthas that are surrounded here, but you have the capacity and you can do it as a baby. You're so supremely powerful that you don't even. Prabhupada writes that Krishna didn't have to become 6 months long to fight with Putana because it disturbs Mother Yashoda's mood. He can do it as a baby. So think of it. The God that we worship can do these things as a baby. Our biggest, heaviest, most impossible traumas, sufferings, and problems, he can treat it like that. That's the lesson from the story of Shakatasur. So the practical advice is to identify what are these things in our life? What are these things? And can I write to Krishna? Maybe spend some time today, 5 minutes of your time, and think about what are these things that you find impossible to overcome. And can you supplicate it to Krishna and give it to him that, my Lord, can you keep these out? Please, I'm waiting for you. Okay, we're going to look at the last demon and close out. It's not technically a demon, but the Arjuna trees. Now, who are these Arjuna trees? What's an Arjuna tree? What's a tree? These are massive trees, massive, hundreds of feet, 200s of feet tall trees. They were two brothers in the past life. What were the names of these brothers? It comes in Damodar Ashtakam, these names. Kuvera's sons, Nal Kuvera and Manigriva, right? These two brothers. So they also were rascals in their own ways. They were bathing with some girls. They were naked. And Narada Muni appeared on the scene. And again, this is the same Narada Muni who's being told to. So the girls in shame, they covered themselves. These boys were such rascals that they did not cover themselves. And they were kind of looking at Narada Muni like, look at us. And so Narada Muni said that you shameless people, you have no understanding. These women are much better than you. So when Narada Muni appeared, these guys were so shameless that Narada Muni cursed them. He said that you have no understanding how to bow down to a saint. You have no sensibility. May you stand as trees for years to come. But then they were worried. Oh no, what did we do? So they asked for a blessing. Again, Narada Muni gives them a blessing that okay, maybe when Krishna comes, he liberates you. He'll liberate you. So these Arjuna trees, again, 80 to 100 feet tall, a little baby, 50 to 100 tons of weight each, required force to uproot over 100,000 pounds. A little baby comes and uproots them. Again, Krishna showing his impossibility to us. Now, what do these trees represent? They represent material intoxication because these guys were materially intoxicated. They were intoxicated with wealth. Look at how many followers we have. Look at how much knowledge do I have. Look at our beauty. We are celestial beings. Look at our lineage. We are sons of Kuvera. So all these things that we see in our life, that's what these demons represent. And so when Krishna comes, he kicks them out, he kills them, he destroys them. So my question to all of you is, and question to myself also, is that how do these qualities show in us? This pride, the false pride and material intoxication. And can we invite Krishna to kick these out and kill it in our lives? There was more about Kaliya, that it's in the 28th verse. I'm not going to talk about it right now because we're coming to the end of the class. So ultimately, a quick summary. We looked at the verse. The verse talked about it's a conversation between Brahma and Narada. Brahma has defined all the concepts of divinity in different aspects of time and universal time and all of that. But Narada is saying that, but yeah, who is this person? And so Brahma goes and makes it personal. And he gives the example that how impossibility shows up. These events happen. They're impossible events. The person who did this is not an ordinary person. Ergo, the person who did it is God. So that's the kind of logical framework Brahma provides. Then he gives these three examples to showcase the impossibility of these acts by being done by a baby, and specifically that's what the baby pastimes are given here, that a baby can do these things. Putana represents, what does Putana represent? The false gurus and false philosophies, which seems happy, which seems like, okay, try this, in 20 days your life would be changed, and the same person. What does Shakatasur represent? Anarthas and bad habits stacked up, like impossible karmas to deal with. And what does the Arjuna trees represent? Material intoxication with different things. And Krishna, how he comes and he sucks the life out of one, he kicks the other one, and he destroys these trees. So our supplication and our prayer to Krishna is that, my Lord, you do the impossible. These things are impossible in my life. Can you come and do your act that you're known for? On this specific day today, which is also the disappearance of Sanatan Goswami, disappearance of Bhakti Charu Maharaj, appearance of Vyasadeva, and beginning of Chaturmasya, it's an excellent way to set an intention, to identify at least one bad habit or one thing that we want to work with, one anartha. I don't even want to call it a bad habit, one trauma, something that we really struggle with in our heart of hearts. That if I were to become a more spiritual person, what is coming in my life? And can I supplicate to Krishna to do the impossible? And see how can that make a difference. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. If there are any questions or reflection, I'll be happy to take them at this time. Yes.
Thank you for this class. It was so well done. I'm always so happy when you're here. And I have a question about, so this is something that I struggle with. So, I lived 40 years of life before Krishna decided that I was ready to know him. And, with things like traumas and things like, anarthas and things like that, it's like there are all of these like tools and methodologies and things that you could do to help yourself move beyond and move past them. And then there's also this concept in Krishna consciousness where it's like he meets you at your level of endeavor. So I guess I just get there's this, I've heard this many times, like, don't try to fix yourself, just chant. But that I find that very difficult because I'm like, well, what do I do in the meantime when all of these traumas are making me a terrible person to other people, and I'm triggered, and then I'm a jerk, and then I create offense. So what do we do? How do we hold that balance? What's the pathway forward where we do recognize and realize it's impossible for me to do it, but what do I do in the meantime? I think is my question.
Thank you. Excellent question. Yeah, our movement is infamous in a lot of ways where people would just give the advice of the band-aid of, oh, you're not the body, or just chant. It's going to solve everything. Well, chanting does solve everything, but there's a lot more steps in between that comes. Krishna, when he spoke the Bhagavad Gita, at what point Krishna told Arjuna, just surrender everything to me? When did Krishna say that to Arjuna? Last chapter, 18th chapter, 66 verse. He doesn't start with, okay, Arjuna, just surrender and you're fine. No need for the whole Bhagavad Gita. There is a whole conversation and a whole processing of Arjuna's trauma. Arjuna is describing, my hands are trembling, my mouth is drying up. Arjuna is so in touch with his emotions and in his body. He talks about what's happening in his body. He talks about what's happening in his heart. I cannot see, I cannot stand. My mind is reeling, my heart is reeling. I'm just so confused and feeling so much pain in my heart. And what is Krishna doing at that time? What is Krishna doing at that time? Listening. Krishna is listening. And Krishna continues to listen as Arjuna goes through his whole mental breakdown, his whole nervous breakdown, all his anxieties are out, and Krishna is listening. And Krishna is listening up until what point? When Arjuna says that, I don't know what to do, please help me. Krishna is not giving advice that, oh, Arjuna, don't worry, you're not this body, don't worry. Just fight, Arjuna, just chant, Arjuna, I'm here, I'm God. No, what is Krishna doing? He's letting him speak and letting him express his pain, his suffering fully. And when it's expressed fully, and when Arjuna says that, okay, Krishna, now I'm ready to receive. I'm your disciple. Then Krishna gives the Bhagavad Gita. And then again, he starts with the most basic philosophical understanding that, okay, Arjuna, look, I hear you're in pain, but think about it. Are these things really to be painful about? Are these things really causing pain? Let's understand that you are a spiritual being. You have this material anxieties that are coming up, and see how different you are. Then he goes to Karma Yoga and what is your action. Up until to the point where finally Arjuna, at the end of 18th chapter, Krishna says that, okay, Arjuna, just surrender. So when this advice is prematurely applied to us, that becomes a problem. And we give this advice to anyone who comes struggling, that someone new bhakta comes to Krishna house. I'm struggling with all these things. Yes, you chant, you do all these things, but then there is a lot of practices in between, that support that's needed. How do we provide that? The answer is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives that advice. To Sanatana Goswami, actually, he talks about, what does he talk about? Pulling the weeds of the heart. He says that just like you're chanting and you're doing activities, we are also actively pulling out these anarthas. Now, how do we pull out these anarthas? The spiritual practices of chanting, hearing, shravanam, kirtanam, they all help, but there is active additional effort that is given through sanghas. Now, what is a sangha? Sangha does not just mean what we are doing right now. Sangha could also mean that you sit with a person that you trust, that you find, and you can share these burdens in your heart, and you work with them and understand that, hey, I'm really struggling with these things. How can I overcome this? How can I see? And then we see Krishna's advice. So what can we do in the meantime? Because if we are not at the 18th chapter of surrender yet, and if we are in the first chapter or second chapter, one, we have patience, and we see that, okay, Krishna is there, because ultimately he's gonna come and kill. When these things happen, remember the cosmic timing was impeccable. Krishna comes at a specific time. He does not come when Prahlad says, Krishna, help me, when Prahlad is thrown from the top of the mountain. He comes towards the end and holds him directly. Prahlad still has to go through the experience of the fall and to call out to Krishna, and then Krishna. So Krishna will come. He's coming for every one of us. He's coming for sure. There's no doubt about it. What do we need to do in the interim? Patience and trust. Finding somebody that we can really work with. Who is that mentor for us? Rupa Goswami says, Guhyam Akhyati Prichati. Find someone who you can share your heart and reveal and see that these are the challenges. If there are issues, addictions, Bhakti Recovery Group is incredible if you have seen that. They have sanghas for different kinds of, because we all have anarthas. We cannot live in this world that, oh, I don't have any anarthas. If you're living in that world, you're like Putana, false guru. So we have these things. So we identify these recovery groups and we work with them. There are recovery groups for even children of dysfunctional parents. You don't have any anarthas? Okay, that is my anartha. My anarthas, I waste a lot of my time. Anarthas could scale from whatever to whatever, but for Krishna, it's just a kick. So Krishna doesn't see that, oh, this person has more anarthas than that one. No, for him, it's just anartha. He just kicks it out. But before we get to that point, we identify these sanghas where we can share our heart. We do some active work along with the practices of our bhakti, which maybe it includes some kind of journaling that we can do. Maybe it includes some kind of 12-step program. Whatever is needed, whatever supports our bhakti, we do that. And Krishna provides these things to us. And there are so many devotees within the movement who are doing all other ways of healing modalities and practices, which is in service to our bhakti. And at the same time, not at the cost of our bhakti. We don't need to do spiritual bypass. We don't need to use bhakti as a way to excuse, but we also don't need to bypass spirituality. We do our practices of every day, and then we recognize that this is where we are. So hopefully that helps you in your question. Okay, there are no other questions or comments. Thank you very much for this opportunity today. I appreciate all of you, and a very happy Chaturmasya and Guru Purnima to all of you. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki